there's a good, you should go there. But anyway, Motown, of course, if you were born in Detroit, your grandparents playing Motown, your mother and father, your aunts and uncles, your cousins, it was on the radio, it was on TV, so there's no way that you could not be influenced by the Motown sound, but of course it was international, so it went everywhere, but specifically here, we were a lot closer to it. And Motown, this is the original building that's still there. At one time, Motown had like probably about 15 houses on this street, and each house was a different division, promotions, distribution, you know, that type of thing. When Underground Resistance was formed in this building, Mike Banks was heavily influenced by the business structure of Berry Gordy. So we make our own records, we have our studios here, our record shop, our booking agency, we do our t-shirts and distribution. So it's like a mini Motown, not as big. So Motown is a major, major influence. In this corner, if you can see, this is Coleman Young, who was the first black mayor elected in Detroit in 1973. So prior to that, there were, of course, no black mayors. And when he was elected, there's a lot of racial discrimination going on in this area, and it continues to this day. We were all, of course, young when he was elected, but everybody's very, very, very happy that we finally had a black mayor to sort of like equalize things in the city of Detroit. So he integrated City Hall, which at that time was primarily Caucasian, and he made it a little more, even. The police department was also primarily Caucasian, so he sort of integrated the police department to make it more even, because at that time in Detroit's history, the police would target African Americans, sort of like what's going on today in the United States in different states, where you have people of color sometimes being killed for literally no reason at all. So a lot of racial profiling, I should say. So we had a similar type unit of police officers here called Stress, which was formed to eliminate crime in Detroit, but they targeted black people and also killed a lot of black people, innocent people. He abolished that unit, so that was a coup for everybody. We were very, very happy about it. He was in office for probably 25 years, which is a long time. And after a while, he did lose his effectiveness. So I think he probably stayed in office too long, but he was just reelected every year because the city was increasingly becoming more African American. So if anybody white ran against him, they didn't have a chance. So he finally retired, and he died, I forgot what year. But he was also a visionary, because if you go downtown, you see the little people mover thing that goes around downtown. He's the one that brought that to Detroit. And when he did, everybody said, "You're crazy. Detroit doesn't need, any type of mass transit." The three automobile companies were really against it because they sold cars, the world headquarters were here, and they did not want a transit system here. So there's many reasons why Detroit never had mass transit. So now we have a little one that they're making now, but it does not even go through the entire city. It starts right down here at Woodward and the Boulevard and goes to downtown. So most of the city of Detroit, it doesn't go through the city. And his goal was to have a train. The reason he had that one downtown, his vision was to have a train that would go from downtown that extended into the suburbs all the way to Pontiac. But there was resistance from the suburbs because they didn't want it to happen. So years later, finally we get a little bit, a small train system, and hopefully one day we'll extend all the way. Mojo, if anybody's a techno fan, you probably know about Mojo. He had a radio station here, WGPR. And wait a second.
I was trying to think of it too.
Yeah, WGPR. Sometimes I forget. And at that time, he was the only on-the-air personality who could program his own music, because most stations, the program director gives you a sheet of paper or whatever, now I guess through an email or whatever, and tells you exactly what to play. So you don't really pick. But he was able to program, so you might hear gospel, jazz, classical, country and western, big band, music from Brazil, just a big, eclectic type of program. So when techno was first created, he was the first DJ on the air to play techno music. And it wasn't a huge signal. It went throughout Michigan and over to Canada, because Canada is very, very close. And that is how Richie Hawtin got wind of techno music. So that's how he came into the game. And he also was the first DJ to play a Prince record in the world. So he was really, quite progressive. And his shows were, he had a large following. Something else. And he also had a radio mix show called Deep Space Nine, and all of the founders were DJs on that radio show. So,
was that connected to the Deep Space label that they made?
No.
No, I was just wondering.
And Kraftwerk, of course. Everybody knows about the history of Kraftwerk. Electronic, heavy influences on all things techno. Their influences were James Brown and African Bambaataa. If you didn't know that, everybody know that?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know? Did you know? I just found out. I didn't know.
I just read about it.
Because I often wondered, where did their influence come from to start this electronic type music? But when I heard it and I thought back, in particular to African Bambaataa, I could clearly hear the influence. And also Giorgio Moroder, who was an electronic producer, worked with Donna Summer and a lot of other artists, and I Feel Love, which is like a techno record today. It was called techno, and we still play it to this day. So yeah, they're very, very influential on everybody. And Detroit is also, well, we have jazz, we have gospel, we have country and western, all of that, but also funk. Parliament Funkadelic is a heavy influence on Detroit, and because the founders were born here, them as well. Mike Banks, who's a keyboard player, toured with Parliament Funkadelic before he became a producer of techno music. So that's a lot of people